A Connecticut man has been warning the public, get your money out of U.S. banks immediately. A historic financial reset in 2023 could cause a run on the banks unlike anything in our nation's history, he says. His warning has already reached 8.4 million Americans and 30 TV networks. And yet, few people realize this could actually happen on U.S. soil, or what a sizable impact it could have on your wealth, especially if you have large amounts of cash in the bank right now. Normally, I might ignore all this, but it turns out he's a Wall Street legend whose work predicted the COVID crash, the 2022 crash, and the 20 best stocks of 2022, and more. Today, he's urging you to move your money into a new vehicle 50 years in the making. He's even posting a free recommendation, which you can access at reset2023.com. His work pointed to a 10,090% gain back in 2020, so don't miss this. A new vehicle outside the banking system could massively boost your wealth. You can get the details today at reset2023.com. Again, that's reset2023.com. Happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Daniela Cambone, and welcome back to the Daniela Cambone Show. Here with Todd, Bubba, Horwitz today of BubbaTrading.com to talk about the recent midterm elections. As we're speaking right now, Bubba, it's still unclear who's controlling Congress, but we have a lot of other things to unpack here. So first and foremost, welcome. Happy Wednesday. Happy post-midterms.
Hi, Danny. Great to be back with you. And of course, this is a big jumbled mess, but I do think that we can fairly assume it'll be a red Congress, but the rest is still up for grabs.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Donald Trump's, some of his key candidates disappointing. A lot of Republicans expecting to just sweep red here. How disappointing are the latest numbers here?
Well, I think it was a pretty poor performance. I think one of the biggest problems we can look at here, Danny, and you know that I'm a big fan of President Trump, and as he was president, I thought he was a great president. But since he lost, and he's been too much involved with his big mouth and has not been able to, push anybody over the finish line anymore. He's lost his power because of his too much talking. It's kind of cost him his credibility. When he cost the Republicans the Senate in 2020 by talking too much, and now again he's got a big announcement that he has to make right before the midterms. This was not a healthy thing for him, and I'm hoping that his announcement is not that he's going to run again, because unless he can get DeSantis to be his vice president, I have no interest in President Trump rerunning again.
Well, let's break it down. A few things there. First, were you surprised about Fetterman beating out Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania? That was a key state.
Not really. And now, again, it's amazing because they're so much energy dependent and he is so anti-energy, but it wasn't a real surprise. I think that Oz was not a really good candidate to run against him. And you've got some of those people that followed along, and there was a lot of split ballots along the road as well. So I wasn't totally surprised. In fact, if I didn't not want to make it, I would have bet that Fetterman would have won.
Okay, and your take, you said, whether Donald Trump will run or not. I mean, do you think this will change his decision in any way? And compare this to the sweeping victory and night that Ron DeSantis had.
I hope not. Listen, nobody knows what President Trump is going to do, and right. I think that one of the problems is he just opens up his mouth in too many different situations that are not that he can't win, and I think that becomes his problem. And based on the fact that he could only be a potential one-term president, I would much rather see DeSantis. DeSantis seems to be the answer that we're looking for. If you're a red or libertarian, he would be the guy you'd want to be running in 2024, and I think that he will be the one that will run in 2024.
Do you have any insights about the possible chatter of Michelle Obama coming out as a Democratic leader?
I have not heard that, but unless Biden becomes totally incapacitated, I think they're going to rerun him again. Again, I've not heard about Obama. Now, that could be a last-minute surprise. We've still got 2 years to go until we get there. So, and the real campaigning probably won't start till after January. So I think certainly it's a possibility, but I have not heard anything about it myself.
Okay, let's talk about what you and I both love, the markets here, okay? And I want to know from you if this changes anything at all.
Not really. I think here's what my opinion going into the election was: if we had a red wave, the markets would rally first and then collapse. And if it was a blue wave, then it would just collapse. And right now we're just going down, which was a neutral. I guess we had a purple wave right now, and the markets are headed lower now. And I think, listen, as I've told you before, I think we're going down 50 to 70% before this recent sell-off is over, which obviously started in January. I don't know how long it'll take to get down there, but I think we're in a pretty dramatic bear market. We've got so many issues in this country, from a food shortage to an end to the crisis of what we're paying for food and for gas, for now a diesel fuel shortage, which is going to really, it's a great time for diesel fuel shortage that does deliveries using trains and trucks when it's coming right into Christmas. So this is going to be, I think, a real nightmare fourth quarter, and I think we could see a real ugly finish, and we may not get the usual Santa Claus rally this year. This could be like December of 2018 when the markets got clobbered.
Well, I was going to say, you're going against history here, because the Santa Claus rally tends to happen after a midterm election. But you're saying because there's no clarity in terms of policy, that's going to shake things up here.
Oh,
is that correct?
There's no clarity of policy. There's no clarity in energy. There's no clarity anywhere. And inflation is going to the roof. Tomorrow we've got CPI. And all I can tell you is whatever the number is, multiply it by 3, because that's the real inflation. If you really calculated inflation under the right way, which is food and energy, which is only 4% of the number they report, because Americans spend most of their money on food and energy other than an emergency or a crisis. Credit card is at record debt, record highs. The Fed is trying to raise rates into a recession. How can we possibly look forward to Santa Claus showing up unless he's bringing coal along with him?
Okay, will it create more volatility surrounding the debt ceiling?
I don't know. I would suspect that, as usual, especially if control remains in 2 of the 3 houses, in 2 of the 3 branches, and control the Democrats, they'll raise the debt ceiling without a thought. What do they care? They don't care about the massive debt. They don't care that we have our debt service. The United States debt service has gone up so far by $1.4 trillion a year, based on the increase in rates that we've seen recently.
So I want to get back to your forecast there of the collapse really in equities here. I mean, would you be completely out of equities now, or would you be playing, cyclical stocks versus defensive? I mean, what would be your game plan here?
My game plan doesn't change, Daniela or Danny, my friend. I'm always long. I'm hedged against the market. I use derivatives to hedge my portfolio. I'm accumulating. I'm buying more, believe it or not, as we go down. Again, I'm a believer in America, and I know that this market will recover at some point, okay? And at least in my opinion, if it doesn't, we got much bigger problems. But I'm a buyer of equities. I don't believe in the risk on, risk off type of trade looking for cyclicals. I trade what I want. I can protect them using derivatives and be perfectly hedged, and actually being a bigger buyer as markets go down, which of course I am. And that's exactly how I will trade them. But from a trading position, I will be short, and I will continue to look for opportunities to get shorter, because I do believe that we're going to see that massive sell-off. So I do look for this selling to continue, and I look for it to get heavier and hotter because I think liquidity is going to come back to the markets now as well. We've been dealing coming into this election with no liquidity in any market, and I think now that's starting to come back as well.
Well, on the topic of recession, there's still a lot of topics I want to cover with you. But on the recession, I mean, you saw the news, Meta laying off, parent company of Facebook laying off 11,000 employees, 13% of its workforce, Zuckerberg taking full accountability for that. Is that the sign of a recession? Is that what's going to bring down everything now, or has it already started?
It's already started. Everybody's laying off. Unfortunately, in this country, we don't report the jobs number properly. And of course, you saw a jobs number last week that beat expectations. But what they didn't tell you is that those are part-time jobs. Okay, you've got most people that are working have to have more than one job if they want to make a living. The full-time environment has seen nothing but layoffs and nothing but closures. And this is going to continue. You cannot keep stripping down the American population out of their capital and out of their money if you want business to survive. And we've now destroyed almost every small business in every major state. Again, when you're looking at big states and big cities, there is no small business. Some of the smaller cities, yes, because the big guys won't go there. But we're basically down to Walmart and Amazon in the retail business. And again, this is a problem. We're destroying competition with the way that this administration wants to run the country. And that is not the way that America was built, and that is not capitalism. We need to have capitalism come back in and play here, not socialism.
I want to get your thoughts. You brought up the diesel issue and major shortage. Before, I had George Gammon on last week. It was widely received interview where basically he was saying, the 25-day deadline for diesel is real, that the shortage crisis is here. And if there's not a solution, we're basically going to face a zombie apocalypse because you need diesel for food. And of course, many other things. Now, how do you see it? There's, if you look on the other side of the spectrum, people will say that's just, it's just fear mongering. It's not true. There's not going to be a shortage. What's Bubba's take?
I say there's going to be a shortage. I do agree. And I think that it's going to create, you're already seeing many of the small truckers. We only remember the yellow freights or the big guys that you see the trucks on the road all the time. But there's a big percentage of small time truckers that have to make some of the short-term deliveries. They're already shutting down. They've already parked their trucks and have turned them off and said, we can't make a living. There's not enough fuel for us to do things, and we can't make enough money to make the deliveries anyways. So I think that's a major problem, and I think it is real. And I think that what we're going to see here is you're going to start to see a food shortage. And the minute that it really comes out and people really start to believe it, then you're going to have the people that are going to starting to hoard things, that you're going to see empty shelves. You already see empty shelves in any store you go into, whether it be Walmart or your local grocery store. They already have empty shelves. They don't have enough supplies. You don't have enough goods. And if you can't deliver goods, they're going to be stuck in the harbor if they are there anyways, because they can't get them delivered.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I've had so many viewers write in, sharing their stories, showing me pictures of empty shelves, especially eggs. So many folks writing in saying they can't find eggs where they are. So no, this is real life indeed, Bubba. Want to talk to you now about cryptocurrencies. I know that, like I've said in the past, you're one of the few, you're in precious metals, but you're also in crypto. Let's talk about the debacle that's happening over in Binance FTX land. To give some perspective, FTX.com began Sunday with over 20,000 Bitcoins on its platform. They were all but gone as of today after the exchange buckled. The clients withdrew 430 million of Bitcoin in just a few days. We see the carnage across the board here in the crypto space.
Well,
thoughts?
I'm a fan still. I think it's probably a buying opportunity. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin itself, it's really stuck in that, 15,000 to 25,000. And certainly as an investor, I think that you like to see these carnage events come up because it really forces the price down lower. As a trader, I would call this like a blow-off pattern to the downside, which is where I'd like, when I can see where a short term it starts to bounce a little bit, I'd like to be a buyer. I mean, Bitcoin may fail, and I think that everybody has to be aware of, if you're going to play in the crypto space, which I am a big believer, and I think it is the currency of the libertarian. I do believe that, listen, you have to be prepared that it could go to zero. There is no hard asset. It's not like gold. I can't hold it in my hands. I can't look at it. I can't touch it. So it's a little tricky, but I do think that crypto is real, and I do think that crypto is going to be the wave of the future as you watch the central banking system trying to convince everybody to go to a digital currency, which is not a cryptocurrency. And I think they want to make a worldwide digital, which they can have total control of it. And I think that's what you're seeing some of the problems here. And I do believe that the cryptos are real. But again, always in that kind of market, it's very speculative still. But Russia's using a lot of crypto right now because of some of their restrictions, so they get around it through crypto, as are others. And the blockchain technology is phenomenal and been around for years. So I think they're real. I'd be looking to be a buyer at some point here, knowing though that I have to take risk.
Okay, on the flip side, gold, your friend Bubba, has been gaining some steam. It's still very cheap relative to other assets. It looks like it wants to go higher here. Do you agree?
I do agree now. I think the flush down to almost 1600 last week, I think might have been the bottom, and that would be very similar to the bottom that you've just seen in the cryptos that you just asked me about. That kind of bottom is usually a potential sign of a reversal. I think first we got a big short covering rally that brought gold up near the 1680s, and now we're well over 1700. And I think this is a very key area. And I am, not only do I own physical gold, as you know, but I am long gold futures now as well, because I do think that we have now reached that point where we can start to go higher. And I think the trigger point on that was silver. Actually, I think platinum, believe it or not, was the first trigger point, because platinum looked the best, even though it's low price. Then silver held nicely when it could have gone lower while gold was still going down. And now they're all going up. And I think that we might see a pretty solid run here in the precious metals going into the end of the year.
I guess to wrap here, Bubba, just final thoughts for investors. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, how do we bring clarity to the people at home? But I think to sum it up, the market's really now just focused on, looming recession, Fed tightening, obviously still the war in Ukraine. Am I missing something?
Well, you're missing that we have a major problem, and we have obviously a spending problem. And unfortunately, in this country, the taxpayers, the middle class especially, get to pay all these bills that are being created, which is going to take away from their actual net income and their excess spending. As far as investing, look, I think that you should always stay invested in markets to some point. And I think you should look for opportunities if you have new money that you are not going to need to pay your mortgage tomorrow. You should be investing that money in one of these asset classes that we talk about. But if it's money that you're going to need to live on, you cannot invest that money. You cannot get over leveraged to these markets, because it could get ugly and you could suffer some great pain. But I think you're going to start to see some terrific opportunities going forward that will allow you to make a heck of a return in the future. But you must only invest money that you don't need tomorrow to pay the car payment, the mortgage, or feed your family.
Todd Bubba Horwitz of BubbaTrading.com. Thank you for joining me this Wednesday.
Thanks, Danny. Always great to be with you.
We will see you soon. And thank you all for watching. We'll have much more coming your way, so be sure to stay tuned to the Daniela Cambone Show. And you can register at DanielaCambone.com to make sure you're on top of all these awesome interviews. That's it for me. Have a good one.
Opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the contributor and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Stansberry Research, its parent company, or affiliates.